At the beginning of the movie, we meet Jules, who comes to her mother's room to inform her that she heard footsteps on the roof. Her mother doesn't believe her, saying that it's just a bad dream. Jules insists it's Santa Claus, and her mother suggests it's elves, and she leaves cookies for them. The mother returns to her room but notices that the front door is open and tells her husband to take better care of their family, but he just wants to sleep. Jules hears the noise again, gets out of bed, and goes to wake her brother to see the gifts that Santa brought, but he doesn't care. Then she goes to check and is frightened when she sees an axe. She watches as Art climbs the stairs and goes into her brother's room, where the sounds of horror are heard. With the bloodied axe, it heads to her parents' room, first attacking her father. Her mother wakes up and tries to save herself and her children, and is horrified when she sees her son's room. She goes downstairs but can't open the door, and Art the clown gets her and tears her apart. After his successful mission, the clown enjoys a meal that welcomes him. Then he washes the dishes and finds Jules hiding, after which the scene shifts 5 years earlier. A cop gets a call to examine a scene and discovers the decapitated body of Art without the head and calls for backup. He continues to look around, and when he looks back, he finds that the body has disappeared. Suddenly, he is attacked by headless Art. The cop shoots at him, but Art takes his head on a subway ride. Then at the hospital, a security guard takes his job seriously and falls asleep. He wakes up to get a drink, but hears a scream nearby. He goes over and finds Victoria and Art's head feasting on someone's body parts. Headless Art waves at him and Victoria attacks, and they kill him together. Meanwhile, on the subway, they find themselves smiling as someone is cosplaying Art the Clown, thinking the real Art is also a cosplay, and wants to take a picture complimenting them on a good job and carrying a horn with them. After this, we see the horn with Victoria, which suggests that things didn't end well. Back at his place, we see many of Art's weapons and a room full of rats that Victoria plays with, after which she looks at herself in the mirror and breaks it with her head. She takes a shard of glass and cuts her arm, after which they enter a 5-year hibernation. Now we return to the present and meet Greg, who has come to pick up his niece Sienna from the hospital, who will now be living with them. She can't wait to see Gabby, who has grown since their last meeting, as well as Aunt Jess. Gabby leads her to the room she decorated, just for her to look like a fairy tale, which Sienna really likes. Then she gives her a letter that Gabby prepared for a happy return and a Christmas full of laughter. Then we see 2 supervisors entering Art's house to check its condition before selling. One of them is afraid of the rats, while the other mentions that a maniac killed over a dozen kids in this house, and they buried all the bodies in the basement, making it haunted. Now the first supervisor is even more scared, but the other one jokes about it. We return to Sienna, who is unpacking her things in her new room. She comes across a picture of her father and remembers when she was little that he drew superheroes, but she wanted him to draw a girl superhero. She leaves, but he tells her he has a surprise for her. After this memory, she notices Gabby reading her diary about Art the Clown and her experience with him, and she snatches it from her hands so she won't read sensitive content, as it's something private. We return to the 2 supervisors who continue investigating the place, and one of them suddenly notices a light in another room and goes there to see Art the Clown sitting there, while the other finds Victoria covered in black blood in a bathtub. He approaches her, and Victoria grabs a glass and kills him. Art the Clown is covered in cobwebs, and as the supervisor approaches, he meets his end as Art attacks him and finishes him off while Victoria watches enjoying herself. Back at lunch, Gabby declares that she loves to look at Sienna's scars, while the mother warns her that it's inappropriate. Gabby shows off her own scar from when she fell while riding her bike over the summer. During the conversation, Sienna has a vision of her deceased friend Brooke, who says that she is dead because Sienna brought Art to her and he killed her. Jess asks if she's okay and Sienna confirms. However, the vision continues and she leaves the lunch. Meanwhile, her brother Jonathan returns to the dorm, where he interrupts his roommate Cole and his girlfriend Mia, who is a big fan of Jonathan because of his encounter with Art the Clown, which he survived, and she is excited about the stories he can tell on her podcast, for which she invites him. But he usually doesn't do those things and will think about it while he goes out to talk to Sienna, who calls him to say she's settled in at Aunt Jess's and is happy that they will spend Christmas together. Meanwhile, Art is preparing for Christmas by making himself a gift, a weapon that will complete his fun, and he tests it on the rat. At the same time, Sienna is doing Gabby's makeup to make her look like a fantasy princess, while Gabby asks where she got the scar on her hand, and Sienna says it was from a fight she won. Now we see Santa enjoying taking pictures with some girls. He is here with a friend and gets a visit from Art, who is ready for a new party. Santa invites him, and Art pulls him by the beard, claiming that it's real since a real Santa has a real beard. They ask what's in the bag, and Art eagerly pulls out a horn, making them laugh. The scene shifts to Jess, who tells Sienna not to worry and that everything will be fine, reminding Sienna of her mother, and they have a conversation about her because they both miss her. Back at the bar, Art becomes Clowny Claus and continues to entertain them, but the bartender is not impressed and asks for ID to confirm he's not underage. Art then throws a drink that he spits in Santa's face, making him angry, but even angrier when Art urinates on him, and the fight escalates as the bartender intervenes, throwing a bag at Art to get out of here. As he approaches, Art pulls a gun and shoots him in the neck, then killing his friend and making him the last target. Santa suddenly apologizes and offers to give him his clothes if he wants to be Santa so badly, after which he ties him to a chair and takes his clothes. Santa begs for mercy, and Art brings in his new weapon which freezes Santa, and then finishes him off with a hammer. Greg is asking if Sienna is okay after the episode she had today. He thinks it's not a good idea to let Gabby go shopping with her tomorrow. Jess reassures him that she is now taking medication and will feel better as time goes on. Sienna writes down her thoughts in her diary and opens notes from Jonathan that she will need for the fight. At the mall, there are many children waiting to take pictures with Santa, who is taking a short break. Meanwhile, Sienna is shopping for clothes for her brother with Gabby, who says that Jonathan doesn't wear black anymore because he doesn't listen to metal music. It was just a passing phase. At that moment, Sienna notices Santa with a mask on his face, who waves at her while she cries, and Gabby asks what she is looking at. Jonathan is looking at Mia's podcast discussing the crimes of the clown. Then Sienna calls him, and they see each other now. She invites him to come to Aunt Jess's house tonight, but he can't because he's going to a party on campus that he was invited to. Cole approaches him, surprised to see Jonathan in public for once. But Mia is even more surprised to see Sienna, and invites her to the podcast as a true crime enthusiast, and is interested in how Sienna is coping after the incident. Sienna is furious and doesn't want to be on a show talking about her traumas that haunt her daily, and she angrily yells and pounds her fist on the table. Later, she tells her brother that she saw Art today dressed as Santa, but he doesn't believe her and tells her to move on and continue living. Sienna says she must destroy Victoria because she is inhuman, and pulls out old theories about possession that Jonathan dealt with in the past, saying they must destroy this vessel that represents a bridge between the two worlds, choosing Victoria because it must be someone who recently died, and Sienna is their barrier. She must now confront the Terrifier and retrieve their father's sword. At the mall, while the real Santa takes a break, Art takes his place and is too excited, inviting a little girl to come for her gift, surprising her with a doll, but the mother calls her back to the line. The other children see the gift and rush to take all the presents from the bag. The employees realize that this isn't their Santa, and security comes to escort Art out of there. The real Santa arrives and finds chaos, while one child opens a gift that explodes as Art laughs. Jonathan is overwhelmed by the situation after talking to his sister and takes pills to calm down, throwing things around. Sienna returns with a gift that she places under the tree, and Gabby notices it, asking if the gift is for her. But Sienna says it's not, and she shouldn't open it. Gabby notices that Sienna's hands are black, to which she says she fell and it's nothing serious. After this, Art arrives at Jonathan's party and comes in with a large bag. Back at Aunt Jess's house, she is preparing dinner and offers a cereal to Sienna, but Gabby says Sienna no longer likes cereal, and Sienna invites her to the room for board games. But in reality, she never told her she didn't like cereal. Gabby secretly took her diary and read it all, so she knows everything about the Terrifier. She asks her if it's all true and if she saw him at the mall today. Sienna says she is sick and that she sees things that aren't there. She asks Gabby to promise not to tell anyone about the Terrifier. Back at the university dorm, Mia talks to Cole about the situation with Sienna, saying she is overreacting. She really wants that interview, and since Sienna backed out, she wants to at least convince Jonathan to do it. Meanwhile, Art enters the university and hears someone talking. He overhears Mia saying that Art is the biggest killer since Jack the Reaper. She wants Cole to convince Jonathan for the interview. At Aunt Jess's house while playing board games, Sienna learns about the explosion at the mall and is very upset, saying that it's Art and that she saw him today, firmly convinced he will come for them and that they aren't safe. Greg calls Jonathan, and Sienna takes the phone telling him he's not safe, and Greg goes to get him. Gabby runs into the room, frightened, claiming that what Sienna is saying may be true, and Jess thinks that Sienna is just scared and that it's all in her head. Back at the university, Mia and Cole go further into the shower, and Art arrives taking a piss and then pulling out a chainsaw, making his appearance known. He first attacks Cole, who falls to the floor while Mia screams, and she's the next target of the chainsaw. At the end, Art is giving her his glasses. He returns to Cole and finishes him off. Meanwhile, Sienna is sleeping and dreaming of her father, who drew her a girl superhero with a sword. But as she takes the drawing, her father doesn't let go and old memories come flooding back. She wakes up and hears voices downstairs, where Victoria is waiting for her, and Art has impaled dead Greg on the wall. Art grabs her and ties her to a chair, where she sees Jess across from her and something wrapped between them. Art slaps Sienna in the head while he goes to the tree where Greg's head is on top. Victoria removes the tape from Jess's mouth and shows her Christmas gift, which is Gabby's head filled with rats. Jess screams as Art approaches and puts rats in her mouth. Then Victoria places a crown on Sienna's head and reveals that it isn't Gabby's head but her brother Jonathan's. Art grabs Gabby, who says she hasn't even opened her gift yet, and Victoria tells Sienna to open it, while Art incapacitates her hands with a hammer. She opens her gift, in which she had hidden the sword she took earlier, and attacks both of them, taking Victoria's head off. Gabby says that she knows about the gift because she opened it earlier and put it back in place. Art attacks her with a chainsaw, and she defends herself with the sword. Art knocks her down and approaches with the chainsaw, but she manages to stab Art using the sword. But behind her, in the spot where Victoria was, a portal forms from her blood which burns the ground and Gabby falls into it, forcing Sienna to leave Art to save her. She reaches for the sword to grab Gabby, but her hand starts to slip from the blade and Gabby falls down. Meanwhile, Art has escaped and Sienna manages to heal herself. The movie ends in a bus where a woman is reading a horror book, and the bus stops for Art to get on, who watches her using the horn while laughing because the fun has only just begun.